Joe, make sure all of your mics are turned on, please.
Oh, thank you. Hi, Paul.
Hello.
Do we have anybody else? Bill, do we have anybody else online? I got Paul. Do I have, I don't see Silas or Eric. I'll give it one more minute and then we'll stand for the Pledge of Allegiance.
You should be able to see them all on that screen.
I just caught it, yeah, on the right-hand side. Thank you.
Surprised not to see Liz on there. Oh, she's fine.
Okay, I will call the Planning Commission meeting of May 16th, 2023 to order at 6:32. Can we please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America,
States of
to the
America,
republic for which it stands,
one
one
nation,
nation, under
under
God,
God.
indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you.
Oh,
Roll call, Commissioner Freiberger,
Present.
Commissioner Koch,
present.
Commissioner Johnson, absent, Commissioner Fournette,
Present.
Commissioner Maddox, absent. Commissioner Fatisi, present. Commissioner Huggins.
Present.
Present. Fantastic. Okay, as we move on, has everyone had the ability to look at the consent agenda, I'm sorry, the meeting minutes from April 18th, 2023?
I had an observation.
Which one?
Are they always posted online before we get them?
I don't know.
Same time. Same time,
Oh, the same time?
yes.
Oh, I never knew that because I saw that it was online before we had a chance to approve it.
Yep, we did it at the same time.
Oh, I never knew that. Okay.
I had some minor stuff earlier that I talked to Katie about. It was just, oh, it wasn't changed yet. Meeting to be held in May.
Did I have one?
Now, it still says April, but I know. It's all right. I knew where to look.
Then your name won't be fixed either, because I did that.
I had a few.
Floor is yours.
Okay. So, on page one there, under Planning Commission discussion information items, just Planning Director John Coleman, add his last name in there.
Thought that was funny.
And I don't believe he was presented with a plaque at that meeting, so maybe change it to say that she would be, the mayor announced that she would be presenting him at the council meeting on Wednesday with a plaque.
Want to make sure he gets it.
And then also, she did also talk about the For the Love of Sedro-Woolley event. That was the next day, so I didn't know if that was something that,
Didn't think it pertained.
okay,
to what we do today,
okay.
But I can add it if you would like.
Nope, that is fine.
Paul, anything?
Nope.
Anyone else?
I don't know if anybody else recalls, but, and this may just be a minor thing, but.
Where are you looking at, by the way?
Let
Just-
me, let me get there. Under new business, the second paragraph there, the last sentence, the applicant plans to have a critical areas review available at the public hearing to be held in April. I heard you changed
We
it to
did,
May.
yes.
But was that a critical areas review or a geotechnical report? That's what I
They're-
thought.
They're two separate reports, by the way. Critical areas are different than geotech.
Right, and I looked back at the recording, and all I saw, but I could have missed it, that it was talked about that was a geotech. But I could have missed that. Okay, okay.
I did rewatch it.
So,
And we'll see that soon, I believe, so,
and that's all I had.
okay. Anyone else? Would someone like to make a motion to approve the meeting minutes of April 18th, 2023 with those minor adjustments?
I so move.
We got first by Commissioner Freiberger, second,
I second.
second by Commissioner Cock. Is there any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
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 All opposed?
Aye.
None. So we have, the motion carries with the minor amendments. So on to the next phase of our meeting, the general public comment section. Did we have anyone that sent anything?
No one said anything, no.
So prior to opening the general public comments section, if anyone wishes to speak, please limit comments to 3 minutes or less. Comments may also be submitted via email or mail ahead of all scheduled monthly planning commission meetings and read into the record. If you would like to speak, please state your name and address or any group or organization that you represent. So at this time, I will open the general public comments meeting at 6:37. And we don't have any emails.
Correct.
We don't have, would any audience members like to participate? You guys are here for something else, I think, right? Is there anyone, Bill, online that would like to speak? Okay, I would say that's no. So we will now close the general public comments meeting at 6:37 PM. So just a note, this is a really, if anyone, if someone replays this meeting, this is a great opportunity for people just to come on out. If you have any concern whatsoever, to get it on the record, because we're not going to know unless we hear it. And that would always be a really valuable amount of time to spend, and you can do it online as well. So here we go to our first public meeting. Okay, so tonight we have a public hearing, CPA-1-23-2023 comprehensive plan amendments, including 2 rezone requests. Peterson rezone request number RZ-2023-001, request to change the zoning designation of a roughly 2.53 acre parcel of land from residential 5 to residential 7. The Benson, am I pronouncing that correct?
Yes.
Rezone request RZ-2023-004, request to change the zoning designation of a roughly .85 acre parcel of land from residential 7 to residential 15. So before I open the meeting, Assistant City Planner McGowan, would you like to add anything into this?
I would not like to add anything in, but I can give an overview of both rezone
How about it?
applications. Okay. So I think the best way to go about this would be take them one step at a time. So we'll start with the Peterson rezone. So once per year, the city of Sedro-Woolley accepts applications for changes to the city's comprehensive plan. All proposed amendments to the comprehensive plan must be considered at one time. The full list of proposed amendments is called the docket. This includes rezone applications, which would involve amendments to the comprehensive plan land use map and zoning map. For 2023, the city council placed 2 rezone requests on the comprehensive plan docket. The first application that we'll be talking about today is the Peterson rezone, and the second will be referred to as the Benson rezone. So for our first public hearing tonight, we're doing the Peterson rezone. This application was submitted by Paul and Elizabeth Peterson, who are in the audience today, the owners of 1122 State Street, which is the property they have requested to rezone. Paul and Elizabeth have requested to change the zoning designation of 1122 State Street from residential 5 to residential 7. The parcel is roughly 2.53 acres in size and currently has Paul and Elizabeth's single-family residence on site, as well as a small barn and a shed at the south end of the property. The rest of the property has been used as open pasture land since the 1930s. Paul and Elizabeth are looking at performing a subdivision on the property in the future. Before applying for that subdivision, Paul and Elizabeth applied for this rezone request, as they've recognized that with the current R5 zoning, they're limited to constructing single-family residences on lots of 8,400 square feet or larger. By rezoning to R7, this would allow them a higher density allowance at 7 units per acre as opposed to the 5 units per acre allowed under the current R5 zoning. The minimum lot size would be 6,000 square feet instead of 8,400. And they would also be allowed to construct duplexes on some of the lots, so long as they provide 9,000 square foot minimum lot size for the duplex lots. Under the current R5 zoning, Paul and Elizabeth would likely be able to construct about 8 to 10 single-family houses on site, whereas if they were under the R7 zoning, they could construct around 10 to 15 housing units. That's about 2 to 5 additional housing units. So note that the city hasn't received any critical areas assessment yet for the property, so we don't know at this time whether there is any unbuildable land there. These estimates are assuming that the vacant portion of the property is all buildable land. When we consider a zoning change like this, it's important to consider whether the uses allowed under the new zoning would be compatible with existing uses on the subject property, as well as existing uses on adjacent land. And it's also important that city services be able to have that capacity to accommodate the development under the new zoning too. So the upzone would allow duplexes in addition to the single-family homes, as previously mentioned. All properties in the area are currently used for residential purposes. There's single-family homes to the west, a 14-unit apartment complex to the north, single-family homes to the south, and then single-family homes in pasture land to the east. A mix of duplex and single-family homes would be compatible with all of the existing residential uses in the area. And city services can easily accommodate those additional 2 to 5 housing units at the property as well. We did receive 2 public comments during the comment period for the Peterson rezone. The first one was from a Sarah Weems, who lives at 701 Bingham Place. She just had some questions for planning staff regarding what a zoning change from R5 to R7 would mean, and then requested a copy of the decision. The other comment was from a Debbie White, who lives at 801 Hunt Lane. She requested that the barrier between her property and 1122 State Street, which consists of trees, bushes, and fencing, not be removed when future development happens, as it would expose the privacy to her backyard. She also voiced some concern that development in the northeast corner of 1122 State Street could potentially result in flooding of her property at 801 Hunt Lane. So I think it's important to reiterate here that the application is only for a rezone. It's a non-project action. We don't consider any specific projects at this time. We only consider the potential impacts of the density increase and newly allowed uses that would result from the rezone being approved, and make our decision based on those findings. So staff recommends that the Planning Commission make a motion to recommend that the City Council approve the Peterson rezone to rezone 1122 State Street from R5 to R7.
Okay, with that, I'm going to open the first public hearing at 6:44 PM for the Peterson rezone. So if we have anyone in the audience that would like to speak, please come up to the podium, state your name, address, and everything for the public good.
I'm Elizabeth Peterson.
Hi, Elizabeth.
I want to add that Nicole and Katie both are excellent staff. I just want to put that on the record because they've been very helpful through this process and answered questions and always very friendly. So I wanted to make sure that was recorded. But, so we are R5, right? Or we're R5. R7 is right on the other side. It will allow us to, even though I know this isn't consideration because we haven't filed for the long plot yet, it will give us 2 more houses. I believe the critical study was back and that there wasn't any critical areas on the property. We also have had geotech out, even though that report isn't in yet, but as we thought it was, because my husband and I both grew up and went to school and stuff in Sedro-Woolley, the there'll be 12 lots, which includes ours, but so it will give us probably 2 more houses, so instead of 8 houses, there'll be 10. But that's, I think we submitted that drawing with the rezone application as well, and that will be the one that we use for the lot application as well.
Yeah, the rezone's a little bit different whereby, okay, you can do something,
Right.
but many times doesn't mean you could actually do what it says you can do.
Right.
For various factors, whatever they are, you know, water not available, it's a whole bunch of different things.
Exactly. And even though, I mean, it says, you know, even with R5, 10 houses an acre, it's, I mean, I guess there might be somehow you can do that, but not with a road or anything in there that you have to take, and landscaping and the, you know, the barrier that you have to make it, you know, what's required by the city, so. We won't make a change. It's kind of odd, really, that property stayed R5 when it's just R7 on the other side, but, you know, when things change, that happens. It does go with a comprehensive plan, which we refer to in the application about rezoning some properties in order to have enough adequate housing for Sedro-Woolley in the future, so. This won't do a lot, but we'll have a couple.
Does anyone have any questions? Go ahead.
One little one. I drove by it on my way here, and I'm looking at the aerial view. I thought there was a land use sign in the wooded section to the,
That is, but that's not ours.
well, that's not yours.
No,
You're
that's-
behind that. You're
Yeah,
behind your house.
yeah,
Oh, so that's a different one.
Yeah, the people that owned that, that's a, I can't,
That's who wrote
Short
in?
plat.
yeah.
It's a
that's
separate short plat application.
Yeah, and I don't think you've had the public hearing for that. You're probably gonna have a lot of argument about cutting down those trees.
Will access to the property be still off estate?
Yes, well,
And
right.
so there'll be a long road that goes to
There
the
will be a long
back?
driveway,
And
yeah,
then,
right. If you drove by, right where that sign is posted, there's a big cattle gate.
yeah,
And it will be through there.
okay. Thanks.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else?
Thank you.
Anyone online? It does not seem so. So we will close the first public hearing at 6:48. And at this point, before I start the next one, let's open it up for discussion based upon what's been provided by staff and let everybody have their say before we move on to the next public hearing as we typically do. In this case, it's a little bit different because we have to recommend dealing with both as one, because it's nothing crazy, so it kind of gets more done in a quicker manner. But I also want to have the opportunity to talk about each individual project. So, Pat, I'm starting with you on my left-hand side. Do you have anything to add?
Yeah, I had a question for the planner. So I just want to go on the record as saying that, and ask a question as well, that, so R5 is, that she said roughly 10 units. R7 would be 12, she thought. Maybe it could be 13, 14. So when you did the capacity study for the sewers and all of that stuff, did that take into account that with one ADU, that would be 28 units at R7, and at 2 ADU units, if the state passes its law, that would be 42 units in that area, and can the sewer handle that at full build-out as people
That is
build
a good
out their
point,
units?
yeah, that is a good point.
That's what we've been talking about, too. Yeah, no, I hear you.
Yeah, so in speaking with Mark Freiberger, sorry, Public Works Director, he did say that this property would handle much more than 2 to 5 units. He was saying it could easily handle probably upwards of 15, 20 units with how the city systems are right now. So I guess I did not specifically ask about ADUs, but I think that with the addition of ADUs, it would still be fine.
Right, and I realize that they won't all get built at once, but eventually they will get built, or or it'll get upzoned again, and it will be apartments
Scare
or
me.
something. So I just wanted to make sure that it's on the record that that R7 means 28 to 42 units on that site possible.
Could be.
And when we get those ADU applications, we would reanalyze everything at that time. So,
Okay.
look at upgrading the systems and when necessary.
Okay.
Yeah, as of now, our ADU applications have been pretty flat. I mean,
We've only received probably 8.
right, in total,
Until now.
citywide. And any specific zones? I mean, have you seen anything where
Mostly R5 and R7 zones, yeah.
ADUs and R7s?
Yeah.
Paul, you're next.
Yeah, I guess, I think Sedro-Woolley needs more housing, so that would be my only comment. And I think it's a great one about the capacity of the city to handle additional infrastructure, but as you said, that's a different project question. But Sedro-Woolley generally needs more housing, but it has to be at the right place. And if this is the right place, then I'm okay with it.
Thank you. Commissioner Freiberger.
First, I wanted to ask you, are we going to vote on this potentially at the end of both?
Yes,
Okay,
yes.
All right.
I figured we'd have a discussion on each individual one instead of combining them together because, I mean, as
noted.
Pat pointed out,
I have comments on the second one, but nothing on
Okay.
the first one. Sounds reasonable.
Commissioner Fournette, anything additional on this particular proposal?
No. I think regardless of how we feel here, I think this is the direction that most cities will be going.
Agree.
And I think it's forced upon bigger cities, 25,000 and more, but we still have a little control left, but I agree that we do need more housing. And it looks like an appropriate spot for it.
I don't have any
Yeah, yeah.
to say except that I agree with that. Okay, so at this time, we will open the next public rezone request, the Benson rezone request, number RZ-2023-004.
Are we voting on them individually, or are
No,
we
we're gonna-
do it both together?
We're going to do them both together.
Oh, okay.
That's what staff recommended. And that was that motion that they had at the bottom of that memo.
Okay. Well, I may be voting against both of them then, because instead of just one of them, so.
But, you know, I can,
So you might want to think about how you're.
It's certainly fine to take them individually if that's what the commission wishes to do.
I can absolutely do that. But what would the motion be? Because I have, let me take a look at this for a second.
It'd just be a motion
We
for
can
the
split,
first
we can
one.
split them up.
Right, the motion would be to,
Make a motion,
on the RZ 2023-001, the Peterson rezone.
okay, I can see where I can split that. Okay, so I'm just gonna throw this out there based upon what we just heard. Make a motion that the city council approves amendments to the comprehensive plan and zoning. Make a motion. Want to get this right. Can you please repeat what you just said?
Oh, a motion on Peterson rezone request, RZ 2023-001.
So it would read as follows: to make a motion on the Peterson rezone request, RZ-2023-001, that the city council approves amendments to the comprehensive plan and zoning maps proposed in CPA 1-23 to change the zoning designation of assessor's parcel number P39825 from the current residential 5 zoning designation to residential 7, period. So would someone like to make that motion?
I so move.
Okay, we have a first from Commissioner Freiberger. Do I have a second?
I'll go ahead and second it.
I have a second from Commissioner Fournette. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? Okay, motion passes. Thank you. So now we'll move on to our second one. I think that's the right thing to do, though, Pat. Agree with that. So
Yeah,
we're on
just-
to the Benson rezone request number RZ-2023-004. Request to change the zoning designation of a roughly .85 acre parcel of land from residential 7 to residential 15. I will open that meeting at 6:57 PM. Mr. Benson, is this your
Give
guy?
the overview before Mr. Benson comes
Oh,
up.
I'm sorry.
Yeah. No, okay.
I'm jumping ahead of myself.
All
Hold
good.
this down.
Okay, so our second public hearing tonight is on the Benson rezone. This application was submitted by John Benson, who's in the audience with us today, the owner of 406 Ball Street, which is the property he has requested to rezone. John has requested to change the zoning designation of 406 Ball Street from residential 7 to residential 15. The parcel is roughly .85 acres in size. Skagit County's IMAP did show that there was a residence at one time back in 1969 on site, but that was removed around 2005. The property has since sat vacant with deciduous tree, bush, and grass cover. John is applying for the rezone request in hopes of pursuing a future multifamily residential development of the property. Under the current R7 zoning, residential development is limited to single-family residences on lots of 6,000 square feet or larger, or duplexes on lots of 9,000 square feet or larger at a max density of 7 units per acre. If a rezone to R15 were approved, it would allow the area to be developed for multifamily housing at a higher maximum density of 15 units per acre. The construction of multifamily residences would be limited to 8 units per building at 2 stories, or 12 units per building at 3 stories, if the units are evenly distributed between the 3 floors. In the event that the rezoned R15 is approved, the property would likely be able to accommodate the development of approximately 12 multifamily housing units, as opposed to the roughly 4 to 5 housing units that can be accommodated right now. That's about 8 to 9 additional housing units. Note that the city hasn't received any critical areas assessment yet to review whether there would be any unbuildable land on the property, and the estimates assume that the vacant property is all buildable land. When we consider a zoning change like this, like I said before, we need to make sure that the uses allowed under the new zoning are compatible with existing uses and adjacent uses on the property and adjacent uses surrounding the area. So, and that city services have the capacity to accommodate the new development under the new zoning. So most of the properties in the area are currently used for residential purposes, with the exception of the church to the south. There's a 30-unit apartment complex to the north. That property is zoned R15. There's single-family homes to the east and west. The multifamily development, as the applicant intends to develop in the future, would be compatible with the existing church, single-family, and multifamily residential uses in the area. And city services would be able to accommodate an additional 8 to 9 housing units at the subject property as well. We did not receive any public comments during the comment period for this rezone. Again, this is a non-project action just for the rezone, so we're not considering any specific projects at this time. Just the potential impact of the density increase and the newly allowed uses. So staff recommends that the Planning Commission make a motion to recommend that the City Council approve the Benson rezone to rezone 406 Ball Street from R7 to R15.
Now, that's one of those situations where ADUs do not work in our R15 zone. just
Correct.
Given the,
You have to have a single-family residence in
Right.
place first before you have an ADU.
well, the density is going to be the density based upon the size of the lot,
Yes.
period. Okay, at this point, I will open up the Benson rezone request RZ-2023-004, request to change the zoning designation of a roughly .85 acre parcel of land from residential 7 to residential 15 at 7:01 PM. Is there anyone in the audience that would like to speak? Please state your name, address, and are you affiliated with any other organizations?
Okay, John Benson, 17885 Sam Bell Road in Bow. And just to speak about the one that Nicole was just talking about at 406 Wall Street. I don't have a lot of additional information, that's just what I wanted to state was immediately to the north of what our project would be is Cascade View Apartments, there's 30 units there. My idea would be just basically a continuation of what already is there aesthetically, and do 2 6-unit, 2-story apartment buildings for a total of 12 units, similar to what's already on site. The lot's about 302 feet deep off of Ball Street, and that's kind of where we would need to put those 2 buildings, is basically in line with the Cascade View Apartments. That runs right over to the Jehovah's Witness Church that's on the south. That's just a blacktop parking lot on that end. Like you mentioned, there is single family to the west. There is also to the east, but there'd be a pretty big buffer between there and the apartments across the street. And so and I don't know if this is fitting for this meeting, but my idea was to do housing for retired veterans, retired and disabled veterans. I have a contact with the Veterans Administration. I've had conversations at length about what is needed for some of our veterans. I think it's supported in the comprehensive plan where I referenced the density that the city is needing to move toward. So I just think that it fits in there. A good point that you guys have already brought up about the ADUs. If we were just to do single family with the current R7 and get 5 to 6 houses, just with 1 ADU on those, we could end up with 12 units. So it may not be a big difference in density.
What's a better fit for what you have in mind, though? And it sounds
I think
like,
the apartments are,
yeah,
just
no,
because
I
you only
agree,
have-
yeah.
It's less than an acre.
yeah.
Remember that we're,
I don't know that you could
Is that-
realistically crowd that many units on that size of a parcel.
remember that we shouldn't be considering it based on unproposed and he hasn't submitted anything to the city. He can change his mind tomorrow. I'm in love with the idea of helping veterans have housing, but that's not what's on the table here. Is this a good location for multifamily? And that's what we need to be considering.
That was just, wasn't anything more specific than that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Is there anyone online that would like to comment? And did we have anything? We didn't have anything submitted in writing.
Correct.
Okay. Thank you. So at this point, I will close the open public the Benson rezone at 7:05 PM. And let's discuss. Let's start from Commissioner Fournette. Let's go right to left.
Is there a house, a single house, what do you call it, residence between you and the church? Oh, mine was off too.
There is one that we purchased, or I purchased a few years ago, and then shrunk the lot down to, but not exactly the minimum, but just to increase our size. So on Ball Street, there is one, it's not necessarily between ours and I don't know how to explain it. There is one on the frontage. Ours is wider on the,
In the back,
in the back than it is on the front.
okay.
And so we had rented that one, and then that woman that rented it asked if she could purchase it. I told her our intent was to do this, something in the future along the lines of what we're doing now. just to make sure that she was on board with what our future plans were. And then just to address the house that was on there when I bought it, it was a tear down when we bought it, and then, you said 2005.
2005
I don't remember
roundabout.
exactly when it was, but there was some neighborhood kids that were causing some mischief inside of there, and the city asked if we would get rid of it, so we just tore it down.
Okay, thank you.
You.
So I was looking at the intent of the R15 zone, and the last line there, that is page 19, I believe, of the staff report, says, because multifamily is permitted in the mixed commercial and central business district zones, no new areas shall be designated R15. And I just wanted to get clarification from staff on if you have what that means.
Can you repeat it, Daniel? Sorry.
This is on page 19,
19.
yeah, of the Exhibit C, yeah, on intent.
17.16.005.
That's correct. Because multifamily is permitted in the mixed commercial and central business district zones, no new areas shall be designated R15.
Ordinance 1484-04.
Thanks, Daniel.
It's unusual.
We don't want to break the law.
So I'm looking at that page. I'm looking at Exhibit C, page 19. Specifically
Intent, the
where?
last line.
Oh,
You're almost there. Right there.
okay.
No new.
Well, they're sorting that out, Joe. A little history that, so I don't remember exactly what year, somewhere between 2001 and 2005, when I first started on the Planning Commission. We basically asked for a moratorium on more R15 in the city,
Okay.
because we wanted to study other ideas that other cities had on how to integrate denser housing without having to do the big apartment blocks, which at the time at least was bringing in a lot of other problems for cities. You see it on the news all the time. So anyway, that was going to be my question, and Daniel beat me to it, which is awesome. My question was, has the moratorium been lifted? And it sounds like maybe not there from the.
To be honest, I'm not sure. This is
No,
something I
Jana, this would
overlooked.
be a really good, I'm sorry, this would be a good question for you. It's not a no, yes, or anything, but we might want to push any motion off until the next meeting, until that's clarified, because this looks pretty clear to me.
Yeah, I think that would be a good
But
idea.
I think that's how they worded the moratorium. They didn't just make it a moratorium for so many months. They just wrote it in like that, and so, sorry.
Oh, no, I'm sorry. So that was my question. Was there actually a moratorium?
Well, that's what we asked for, but we recommended the city council, and I don't know what they actually came up with. And I'm thinking this might be what they came up with, but as a way to do it. But most moratoriums, that's been 15 years ago, and it would have long past gone away, so.
Yeah.
I've got a question on, so we had a pre-application meeting on this parcel probably, I don't know, at least a dozen years ago to make duplex lots, and there was a sewer moratorium at the time where we couldn't do anything except replace the one single family.
Right, and that's
So I don't
since
know if
lifted.
it has to do with the sewer moratorium that's since been lifted?
No, it was because,
Yeah, I agree
sorry.
with you.
Yeah, it was a different thing. The sewer moratorium was a sewer moratorium, but the moratorium we put on was that we had lots and lots of R15 land that had already been zoned R15. A lot of that's been built out now. And people were coming in because they wanted their specific piece to be R15, because they could make more on it. And I'm not here to judge that. I'm just saying that's what they were doing. And so it was circumventing planning. We were trying to plan, and they were just coming in saying, well, I want my R5 to be this, or I want my whatever to be that. And so we said there's plenty of R15, so can we have a moratorium on any more R15 for a period of time, and study other ways to house people without having to build big, huge motel-style apartment complexes. And so that's how we came up with the rules that you would be working under if you built so many units per block. And
What year was that?
I don't remember exactly, somewhere time between 2001 when I was on there and about 2007, somewhere. Was it 4? Okay.
That's the date of the ordinance.
Okay, so 2004, yeah, is when it went into effect.
So this seems like a city attorney question.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I find it interesting how it's inserted into the intent.
Yeah.
As opposed to another way. So I think that would be a wise thing for us to do, is to get back with the city attorney on this.
And anybody could make we could discuss, ending that more, we can come up with anything we want here in the planning commission as a recommendation to the city council. So if we wanted to, we could agree to submit to the city council that they end the moratorium on that and as our recommendation, or not, but we have that ability here on the planning commission to make those kinds of
We don't have the
recommendations.
ability to supersede existing laws.
No, we can't supersede existing law, right. But we could change that if they wanted to go along with it, if it turns out that's what has happened.
So if you did want to give direction to the city council on this issue, it would be a code amendment, that you would request a code amendment. And then that, of course, would be brought back to this body to review and discuss and then make the recommendation for council approval. So if you would like to make that as part of your motion, that we could do that, or we could table this. You could do both. You could certainly give the council, again, a recommendation if you chose to, and then table this until we get back to you with information from the city attorney.
No, I would prefer to table this.
Okay.
Put it back in your wheelhouse, because you'll be able to follow up a lot faster than making motions up and down. We know exactly what needs to be looked at right now, because there might be some latitude in that ordinance that speaks about adjustments for situations like this.
I'm in agreement there. Before we know what the context is of this,
Right.
it would be, we need more information before we can make a
And it's more of a
motion.
technical thing here. It's not that doesn't sound like a fine thing to do. It's simply for the fact that when you have an ordinance in place that says no new areas shall be designated R15, let's check it out first before we start doing things that don't have the authority to do.
I agree with that. It just could be an outdated ordinance,
Right,
and
And we have
the
them, by
city
the way.
attorney
We
would
have
have a handle on that.
yeah.
That basically was gonna be my comment. If it was 2004, it's been nearly 20 years to gather the information to see if it should be a moratorium on the R15 or not. And I think your comprehensive plan has been published since then that addresses the need for higher density housing.
We'll be doing updates this year as well, by the way, yeah.
Yeah, I think, my only concern is that it wasn't worded as a moratorium. Because, usually moratoriums are like, for the next year, you can't
Right, they
do
have
this or
a-
that, and they have an ending date on them, and this looks like it actually got codified into code, which we might have to reverse to make this happen, so, anyway, let's sort it out.
That would bring up also the next question. I would imagine that there's been other R15 developed, or the zoning's been changed on it in the last 20 years.
In the last 20
20
years.
years, probably. I don't know.
Probably.
You're the,
I haven't been here at every meeting, but this is the first one I'm aware of since then. There's been some people talk about it, but I think you're the first one that I'm aware of that's actually done it. But there has been a lot of stuff built on the existing multifamily property, the R15
Yeah,
property.
we've had requests that were denied in the past.
we have, yes.
I've only been here for 2 years, so I don't know. I can't speak 20 years in the past, but
And this isn't a denial or anything, it's just, let's get some clarification on ordinance 1484-04.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what's
Yeah.
on the table here.
To me, this is something that should be removed. I mean, when we do our comprehensive plan updates, we're looking at growth projection. It doesn't make sense to put a stop on our 15 period for all time, so.
So I don't know a timeline on this, but let's just say that they have your contact information. When we get some clarification, or if they need more from you, let's get that dialogue going ahead of time and then revisit this. And I'll let you decide as to when we want to put, or both of you decide when we want to put this back on the agenda.
That's fair.
Okay, thank you. Go ahead, anyone else?
I did have a couple of procedural questions, and I probably should have asked this a little bit sooner since we were voting on one and, or going to vote on both and then vote on one. But the notice of public hearing, is that a 14-day comment period since the notice of application was done separately?
Sorry, repeat the question.
For the notice of public hearing, is that a 14-day comment period?
Yes.
Okay. And it was published on May 5, and today is the 16th. So did the notices go out on the 5th or prior to that?
They did go out prior to that.
Okay.
And you're looking at Exhibit E.
And I saw that the notice of application for the Benson rezone wasn't attached to this document, so I just was going to mention that. I'm sure it was sent out, but just wanted clarification. Thank you.
Yeah, if I remember correctly, I think the notice of public hearing went out May 2nd.
Okay. Thank you.
Is there anything else? Paul? Okay, moving on to unfinished business. None on the agenda. New business.
Are you
Go
going
ahead.
to close the, oh, you already closed the
I
meeting,
did. I
sorry.
already did, yeah.
Okay, yep, sorry.
It was our discussion period, and then we decided that,
Yeah.
let's take a look at the ordinance first.
Yeah, thanks, Jim.
New business, none on the agenda. Planning Commission discussion items. 1, Jana Hansen, can you please stand up and introduce yourself, please? I am so sorry. I should have done this first.
So Jana Hansen, and I'm just here for the month. While we find a replacement for John Coleman, which I believe the city has done. And hopefully that will be formalized next Wednesday evening at the council. So it's been a pleasure working with Katie and Nicole, these gals, the whole department. They're really wonderful. They're outstanding workers.
So you're here until, you're here until the end of May?
I'm here until the end of May. Yes.
Okay.
Yes, so June 1st should be the start date of the new director.
Now, is there anything in your future plans?
No, I'm retired.
Oh, there you go, okay. So you were doing us a favor, a civic favor.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, it's been fun.
Oh,
Thank you.
Thank you. It's a godsend.
So with that, is there anything else that anyone would like to talk about? Okay, with that, a motion to adjourn.
Oh,
I'm sorry.
I do have just something quick. I am compiling some pictures. I will try and bring them by our next meeting, but of some of our ADUs. I don't think they're legit ADUs, or at least they're not in the program, and some of the problems and snarls that they are causing. And so I just, again, want it to be on the record that we are aware that that there are a lot of fleas attached to to some of these rules that are being pushed our way, so.
Do we have a list on, because we do, I hear you on that. Do we have a list of properties that are in non-compliance? Because we did have a grace period when we first put that ordinance in effect.
I don't believe so, but I did want to comment on the ADUs. There's new legislation that's been passed this session that will make it much easier to adopt regulations to allow ADUs with less restrictions. So you'll be having a discussion in the very near future with the new planning director about what that legislation says, and it will be a mandatory change for cities and counties to adopt new regulations to allow the ADUs.
You know, we're aware of that, and when it was first proposed in Olympia, this is what, 2 years ago or last year? We got on it because we wanted to front-run it, whereby at least we had something on the books that it wasn't a free-for-all, and we still had some type of structure. And a few aspects in the new legislation definitely overrides the things that we wanted, such as owner occupancy and things like that, the number of ADUs. So it still remains to be seen to what the final interpretation of that's going to be for a city. And I believe there was like, for cities 25,000 and above, there was like a number
There
for a
is a
population
threshold.
density versus a city like Sedro-Woolley. We're still on the lower end, but it'll be good for Rebecca to come on in and review that. You wouldn't happen to have it, which Senate bill actually passed? Because there were a bunch of different ones.
I can email it to you.
That'd be
because I
great,
did-
yeah.
And actually, there's AWC is offering a legislative update, and I would imagine that any of you could sign up for that also. It's a webinar on the 18th, I think from 2 to 3, and I can pass along that information so you can
That'd be great.
call and register and listen. So
And that's
what we'll be
specifically
doing.
for the ADU
Well,
legislation?
that legislation will be discussed, but a lot of other bills that have passed that will have effects on cities as well.
That'd be greatly appreciated, by the way. But that's a great idea to start cataloging some of the issues that seem to be walking the fine line.
Yeah.
Code
Yeah.
enforcement may have a list like that,
What's that?
too.
That would be good to see some of the approved ones. I know one of the two that I'm looking at right now are not approved. And it's a parking nightmare, and other issues. So anyway, yeah, but it'd be nice to see how some of the ones that are approved are holding up versus, yeah.
I'm going to speak with Laura Carr, our code enforcement officer,
Right,
as well.
yeah.
I do think that she and John were heading the ADU finding, discovery of non-permitted ADUs. So I think they might have a list, too. We'll see.
I'm sure they do. And when we first put that into effect, that was one of our big topics, was the existing properties that were out there that had converted residential uses. It was more of a factor for police, fire, public safety, all kinds of things, that things are in compliance and, you know, just fire code specific and things like that. So I know we were looking into it, but wasn't too sure how far because we had a decent moratorium period too. It was like 6 months for compliance. So it wasn't like, hey, do it now. There's plenty of lead time on that.
But that was all I had.
No, that's good stuff. So, anything else? Okay, would anyone like to make a motion to adjourn?
I make a motion.
We have a motion to adjourn from Commissioner Koch. Second?
I'll second it.
We have
Commissioner
a
Huggins.
second from Commissioner Huggins. Is there any further discussion? No? All in favor?
Aye.
Motion to adjourn carries. Meeting time closing at 7:25 PM. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.